Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the No BS Small Business Marketing Podcast. I am your host, Jarrod. If today is your first time joining us, thank you so much for tuning in. I know that if you're a small business owner or an entrepreneur, you're going to get a lot of value out of this podcast and what you hear. However, in order for you to maximize that value, you really need to go back and start with episode number 1 at a bare minimum. I recommend 1 through 5 in total. I try to keep them short and to the point, but if you don't listen to episode number 1, the foundation, then a lot of what we talk about is going to be very confusing to you. So with that out of the way, welcome everybody else here to episode number 6, which is entitled How to Avoid the Assumption Curse. Now, what I'm talking about when I say the assumption curse is that as small business owners and entrepreneurs, it's very easy for us to assume that our customers, our clients, and our prospects know anything about us. It's easy to assume that they know what we sell, why we sell it, why they should shop with us, why they should come back, or even that they remember us after they've left. We can never assume that any of them know anything about our business at all. They have to be continually educated about our industry, our company, our products, our services, and our offers. And there's a very important reason for this, because if we don't continually do this, then our customers or our clients are going to think that we or all the other stores or services in our category or industry are simply interchangeable, offering the same services or the same merchandise. And if they think that we're all interchangeable, then they're only going to shop with us based on one factor mainly, and that is price. And as a business owner and entrepreneur, the last thing that we want to be selling based is the lowest price. You don't want to be the lowest price in your category or your industry. It's a good recipe for A, dealing with a lot of lousy customers, and B, possibly going out of business very quickly. So we have to continually tell our prospects and our customers and our clients what it is about us that is different and why they should be staying with us. So let's start off with part 1, talking about our prospects. And we're going to use a couple examples here to get the point across. We're going to do one for retail, and we're going to do one for a service industry. Okay, so let's say that you are making or selling a very common item, but you've got one of the higher quality materials, maybe better guarantees, it lasts longer, etc. And I think a great example of this would be from a recent episode of Shark Tank, season number 10. They had a clothing company on, guy making shirts. Now that is a cutthroat industry, and man, is that ever a common item. This particular guy is selling something called buttercloth shirts, which is a pretty brilliant name because you can gather from that name what it is that might make his clothing a bit different. However, if you were to go to their website, these shirts are pretty expensive, $120 on average. And one of the very first things that they do is they address on their website, which is just another form of an advertisement or marketing, is they address what makes their shirts different. They've got a small paragraph right up front that explains that they are some of the softest shirts you're ever going to encounter on the planet Earth. And then they go into a graphic detail on 5 reasons why their shirts are different from all of the other shirts on the market, thus justifying their $120 price tag and answering the important question in the consumer's head: why should I buy from you versus any or everyone else? Now, as a side note, this company also offers a full money-back guarantee if you're unsatisfied with their clothes. And I bring that up because we discussed that in the last episode, number 5, as one of the basic things that you've got to be doing. And I know from experience, from dealing for years and years with small business owners, that that is something that receives a lot of pushback. People are terrified of offering guarantees because they don't want to get taken advantage of. They don't want to be giving things away for free. And that is completely understandable. And that is a topic that we're going to continually address over the course of this podcast. However, you should 100% be offering a guarantee of some sort, any sort that's possible for your industry. And this particular company is very smart in offering one on their very expensive commodities that they're selling. And just by commodity, I mean it's a shirt. Like you can get a shirt anywhere in town. Why should you buy theirs? And it's a $120 shirt, which is a fairly high price point. Maybe not if you're used to shopping, some of the more higher end stores, but for your average consumer, that's pretty pricey. So you can see on buttercream or buttercloth shirts, a good example of them educating their customers for a common item as to why they should buy it. Now, let's say we've got, on the second example in retail, let's say you've got an item that's pretty interchangeable. Let's say it's not different from your competitors. Maybe you're in an old industry that's been doing things for the same way for a very long time. And I think a really good example of this type of scenario and how to educate your prospects in your advertising and marketing would come from the past. We're going to jump back in time to the beginning of the early 20th century, so 1900, with a company called Schlitz Beer. Now, there's a great advertising man called Claude Hopkins. I would recommend that you get his book, Scientific Advertising. It's still available. It's a easy read, less than 150 pages, maybe some dated language, but some important concepts in there that as a business owner and entrepreneur, you're going to want to familiarize yourself with. However, if you don't have time to read, you don't want to do that, just keep listening to this podcast because I touch on a lot of those same items myself because they are eternal principles of sales. Now, Claude was hired by Schlitz Beer, who at the time, depending on who you listen to, was ranked in the top 10 beer sales somewhere between 5th and 8th in market share. Now, we're just going to say 5th for the sake of this conversation. And they hired Claude specifically for him to increase their market share. Excuse me for a second. I got to get a drink. As most of you know, I am coming to you from Las Vegas, and even though it's November, mid-November here right now, it's the time of year where you need a heater in the morning taking my kid to school, and then by afternoon when I pick her up, I need to use the air conditioning on the car, but it is still very dry out here. So I got to pause time for time to get a drink. All right, so Claude is hired by Schlitz Beer in order to increase their market share. Now, at the time, the big rage, so to speak, in the beer industry was the word pure. In their advertising and things that are going out, everybody was touting the fact that that their beers were pure. It wasn't unusual to see in the print advertisements of the day just great big huge full-page ads with the word pure across them. And it was a pretty good marketing concept. Maybe the execution of the ads was poor because they're not doing direct response. However, the concept was good because that was something that beer drinkers of the country were concerned about at that time. So it was an important want in their prospects' minds that they were addressing. But Hopkins, he didn't know shit about beer. He was an advertising guy. And so he did excuse me, Claude went out and did what I myself would do, or any good copywriter that you hire to do an ad for you. And he went out and he learned as much as he could about the company and about the beer making process. So the first thing he did was he went on a tour of the Schlitz brewery. And he saw all kinds of interesting things when he's on this tour. He sees they have these huge plate glass rooms where they got beer dripping down over cooling pipes. And when he asked about these rooms, they told him that was filtered air that was pumped into the rooms. That's why they were encased in glass. And that way the beer remains completely pure as it's cooled down. He sees a whole lot of stuff. He sees big, huge filters that contain like a pulp in it. And he was told that all of this pulp was very expensive. It provided a filtering process. He sees men cleaning everything not once but 2 times a day to eliminate any contamination getting into the beer. He sees the same thing with their beer bottles, how they're sterilizing them 4 separate times with the steam cleaning machinery of the day before they filled them with beer. And let's see, Schlitz was right in Milwaukee, right on Lake Michigan. All right, and even though back in those days the lake's not polluted at that time, they didn't use lake water. Instead, they showed Claude they had dug a special 4,000 foot deep artesian well that they got the purest, cleanest possible water out of. They went and they showed him their laboratory where they had their mother yeast cell, and they explained that they had done over 1,200 experiments before they settled on the yeast that would be perfect for their beer to bring out the most flavor. And all the beer that's ever brewed uses yeast from that mother yeast. Okay, so Schlitz hears all this stuff, and he's like amazed. And he goes and he looks at all of their ads that they're doing, and all he sees in these ads is the word pure. Just pure, pure, pure. And he thinks this is ridiculous. They have this amazing process. We need to base an entire ad campaign around educating the beer drinkers and teaching the beer drinkers about the techniques and all these cool processes that Schlitz was doing to guarantee, or as close as they could, guarantee pure, delicious beer. And so he brings us to Schlitz, and they're like, dude, what are you talking about? That's crazy. That's what every beer maker does. Everybody does all of this. We're actually doing nothing proprietary. This is simply the way it's done in the industry, and anybody that's making good beer is doing it that way. And Claude points out the fact that they're basically seeing it from their eyes as the beer drinkers and the beer makers, but they're not seeing it from the eyes of the end consumer who's amazed by this process. And what Claude knows, of course, is that he can do something here called, in the industry, we would call it preemptive advertising. Okay? So, and what we mean by that, we'll get to here in a second. But Claude knew, or he summarized that when beer drinkers read about all these different processes that Schlitz was using that he wanted to put in their advertisements, they would be amazed just like he was, and they're going to think that that is proprietary stuff to Schlitz, basically. So they say, sure, go ahead, and Claude goes out, right, and he creates these ads that basically tell people, as you can see a couple on your screen right now if you're watching a video on YouTube, tell people the basics of what they're doing. Like he put out one that explained the filtered air process and about how they've got this glass room where the beer drips down on the cool pipes and the air is pumped in. He has another ad, which is pretty genius, title of Ask Your Doctor, where is talking about the importance of purity, which was on everybody's mind at the day. And he says, go to your doctor and tell him that Schlitz beer is aged for months before it's marketed. He will say that it cannot cause biliousness. Tell him that every bottle is pasteurized after it's sealed. And your doctor will say that such beer must be germless. Then he says, ask your doctor what these virtues mean to you. Now, every beer at the time was pasteurized, but he's latching on to this education that the average person didn't know. Okay, and so what happened here? What happens when he does this? He basically breaks the story. He preempts the story, see? Now, if the other brewers had copied his ads, it basically looks in the public's mind that they're just kind of jumping on the bandwagon, and Schlitz was the originator of this. But if you go out and you teach your prospects kind of the nuts and bolts or the basics of your service when no one else is doing that, then it can really set you apart, even in an industry where everything in your mind is the same as everybody else is doing. And there's lots of ways that this could be done in today's world. For instance, well, nobody really knows the intricacies of any business, whether you're in auto repair or whether you're a real estate agent. You could put out all of the various steps that you use as a real estate agent in order to determine the selling price on someone's house. Now, it may be the same steps that every real estate agent uses, but you know what? No one's out there explaining in detail exactly what it is that you're doing. So there's a million little ways that you can take this concept here and you can apply it to your business. And it gives you that preemptive strategy that if your competitors try and do it, it just kind of looks like they're latching on to what you're doing as well. But the truth is that your competitors will likely look at your ads and go, well, that's stupid. Everybody does that. Now, here's the end result of Claude Hopkins' ads. Now, whether you hear the story that Schlitz beer was in 5th position in market share or 8th or even 10th I've read as well. What this did was it tied them for first, and it made the beer famous. And these ads went on to be a great success for Schlitz beer. So now let's move on to the second part of this, which would be educating your clients and your customers. Okay. Hold on just a second. I got to grab another drink here. Now let's start off again. Let's say a service industry. How could a service industry incorporate educating their customers and their clients and their prospects? Let's start with, or not prospects, we're on current customers. So, auto repair. Preventative maintenance is a term that some of you may or may not recognize. And this is an area where auto repairers can focus on their current customer base and educate them about something that they should be doing. Now, this is how it works. Now, everybody knows if you have a car that you need to get your oil changed, right? That is your most basic form of preventative maintenance. But the thing that you're preventing is your engine seizing. If you never change your oil, it won't be too long before your engine simply doesn't run and your car is ruined. However, preventative maintenance is applicable across all systems of your vehicle. Now, take for instance your the brake system. Okay, you have brake fluid the inside of your braking system. All modern cars have hydraulic brakes. Hydraulic systems require a fluid to go through them. Okay, over the course of 24,000 miles or so, that fluid gets really dirty. If that fluid is never flushed out and changed, then eventually it's going to seize up parts, just like that dirty oil is going to seize up the engine. The dirty brake fluid is going to cause the brake master cylinder and the brake slave cylinder and maybe the calipers themselves to all eventually seize up and cause hundreds and hundreds of dollars in damage, let alone leaving you stranded somewhere, most likely, needing a tow, being an inconvenience, and possibly, because it's your braking system, being dangerous. Okay? And this is something that the vast majority of auto repair shops are not educating their clients about. At the very least, they may say, hey, yeah, your brake fluid needs flushed. Like I was at Jiffy Lube. Many of you have gone there. I've been there a million times. They told me, oh, you need your brake fluid flushed. Now, I know what that means from working in the industry. However, they said squat else to me about it. They said it cost $99 and I was due for that service. And then they went on to tell me to have a nice day and give me my receipt and my change with no additional information whatsoever. Now, I'm quite certain that if they're smart, they would follow up with me and perhaps say, hey, Jarrod, they might send me something in the mail. They have my address. They should send me something in the mail that says, hey, Jarrod, yeah, you need that brake flush. But again, if they're not educating me as to why I need it, then why on earth would I buy it? Because as a consumer, I'm just looking at that and going, well, they're just trying to sell me something. Because I don't know. They think it's obvious. They're in the business. So what their marketing and their advertising needs to do, whether it's the guy in the store at the point of sale telling me why I need that brake flush, he needs to explain to me that a $99 flush versus, say, a $500 master cylinder replacement plus being stranded, plus the tow, plus the inconvenience is a much better deal for me as a consumer, and that by flushing that fluid out, much like the oil in my engine, I'm ultimately going to save money and prevent breakdowns and inconvenience and increase the overall safety of the vehicle. And if it's something at the time that I say I just can't do it today, perhaps I'm in a hurry, perhaps I don't have the money on me, whatever it is, then they should have a bit of marketing to take with me that explains the importance of the brake flush, not with technical jargon. Nobody cares how it's done. Don't bore your customers and your clients with the how. Don't explain how it gets flushed out. Explain the whys and the benefits of the whys. The saving of money, the prevention of dangerous problems in the braking system. Okay, because what this actually is it's better for your client. If you have an auto repair shop, it's better for them to do these preventative maintenances that are not just applicable to brake systems and engine oil, but there's many systems in your car that these types of things need to get done on. And the vast majority of people have no idea that they need to get them done, or if they're told, they simply think that the shop's trying to sell them something. This all screams for education. It screams for education, because once that education is done, it's an easy sale. It's easy for me to understand, oh, I can spend $99 flushing something today and it's going to last a lot longer, or I can just continue to let it ride and face a lot of serious consequences in the future. Okay, so, and it's better for the shop. So it's better for the client, right? And it's also better for the shop, because you might look at the short term and say, oh, well, actually, wouldn't it be better for the shop if they didn't say anything about the flush and then they got that big brake job? Well, no, not really. The shop, what you need is predictable income as a business owner. That's a very valuable thing that any of us need, is being able to look at your customer base and being able to predict how many times a year they're going to come in and for what services. That's invaluable. And as a consumer, if you're in that situation, I think you would have some questions as to why the shop didn't warn you beforehand that such a thing could occur. That destroys trust. And in all industries, trust is important, but in the auto repair industry, it's almost the single most valuable thing that you can have. If your customer trusts you, you're able to charge a lot more for your services and for what they're worth. But we'll get into that on later podcasts. But ultimately, we see that in this example here of the service industry, it's better for the client and it's better for the business owner to push the preventative maintenance, which in this case is, or push the education, which in this case means preventative maintenance. So if you have a service industry, take what I'm telling you and just apply this example to your industry. Now let's look at a retail business as well here before we wrap things up. All right. Retail industry, let's talk about, we mentioned it, clothing earlier. Let's go with, like, say, an independent clothing store. Ways that they could educate their customers, because that could certainly seem to be another interchangeable commodity. All right, so one thing that they would definitely want to be doing, if they're selling the same clothes that are available, if they don't have a proprietary clothing line, then they're going to want to continually educate customers as to other services that they provide. Let's say they provide alterations and tailoring. Maybe they offer a pickup and delivery service, private consultations with a clothing expert, etc. All of these things should be told in the upfront advertising as to why you want to come to that store versus another store. And it should be told at the point of sale, from when a customer comes in for the first time. They should be told, hey, this shirt you had, we can custom tailor this for you. You can set up a private consultation. We can set up an early alert system. If you like a particular style of clothes that come in on a limited basis, we can alert you when they come in, etc. The point being that whether it's done in your ads, whether it's done by salespeople, whether it's done in your point of sale or other forms of marketing, it is vital and important, vitally important, that you educate your customers and your clients. Because the last thing, going back to what we discussed here in the beginning, that you ever want to be considered in your prospects and your clients' minds and in their eyes is an interchangeable business. Just another auto repair shop that you could go to, just another real estate agent you could hire, just another clothing store that you can go to, just another anything is a terrible, terrible positioning place for you to be in. And the secret weapon to get all around that is educating your clients and prospects, and using, if you've got a really mundane and common thing in your mind, then use that preemptive strategy that we talked about. All right, now that's going to wrap up today's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. You can download the podcast at jarrodcash.com. That's Jarrod Cash, just like Johnny. You can subscribe on iTunes, Google Play, and more from there. You can also watch videos and subscribe at youtube.com/JarrodCash. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you're watching on YouTube, give me a thumbs up. I'd really appreciate it. And I will see you all on the next episode. Peace. Peace.